Virgo ascendant, Virgo rising, how are you doing? It is May, it's mid-May, but we're going to be talking about the butt end of May. I'll touch in on the new moon for you, and then we'll talk about some of the transiting energies like Mercury, how we think, how we communicate, how we talk, how we speak. We're going to talk about how that's going to be leaving the sign of Gemini and going into its next sign, the evolution of astrology. So it's going to be going into Cancer energy. And Cancer changes the way we think. Cancer then will change how we think about what we feel. Finding out where Cancer is in your chart, knowing where Gemini energy is in your chart, and understanding when that change occurs, why you notice that change in you, right? And this is a really good tool of how to help you better understand astrology if you have your own chart. And if you don't, like if you're new or if you're curious about it, you've got questions or comments or anything you don't know, comment so I can meet you to where it is that you're at and help you to supply you with what you need. One of the big things here at All Astrology is to make sure that every person who's watching understands you are not only understood, you are seen, you are heard, you are cherished. And we really want to meet you to wherever it is that you're at on this path. Mercury, out of bounds, okay? On May 15th, Mercury went out of bounds. Mercury out of bounds is this extreme thing, all right? So when you understand what Mercury means, then you get a better understanding of what this is going to look like. So Mercury is communicating, thinking, how I speak. Remember, it's also like people in your immediate environment. So that's what it's about. Who's in your environment? Don't forget Mercury rules Gemini energy. So this is also how we speak and communicate on social media, on internet, the communications that happen there, things that we're reading, information and knowledge that's coming in, and how we think we're learning something and how we're trying to figure things out. Do we decipher whether it's fact or crap? Do we assume something is true just because it resonates with a belief that we have? This is Mercury over an abundance of thinking and not turning off. So a lot of folks are experiencing lack of sleep, right? Because the brain, the mind, I should say, keeps going, keeps replaying things, keeps revisiting. Let's find out where Mercury is in your chart. It's in Gemini energy. So your Gemini energy is in your 10th house. Now, this is a really cool place because internet is Gemini energy. Social media is Gemini energy. And since the lockdown, since the pandemic began, we are seeing a blow up of people, whether it's on YouTube or, creating new social accounts on all these different platforms that are available so that they can connect with others that they can't connect with normally. Right? So you have ways where you're pressing buttons and you're connecting by that. You're on Zoom and you're connecting that way. You're finding different avenues of communication. And that is what Gemini energy is. Back in the day before the internet, like when was that, right? It was just newspapers, magazines, the radio, television, right? These were things this is how we got information. Because Mercury is the deliverer of information. So anything that involves knowledge coming through, information coming through, news or whatever you want to call whatever you want to call that coming through, it's information. So internet, social media, all the platforms, right? Because Gemini is also fun and crafty. So even something like TikTok, right? I shouldn't even say even something like TikTok. From what I know of it, I've only had a little bit experience it because of my goddaughter. It's more like these little short clips with music. So I don't know how informative they are. I would imagine you can do informative video clips that have words, right, where you're reading text on the screen. But even that would definitely fall into this category. And if it wasn't being used as it before, we're seeing this happening. We're seeing a growth of this, almost to the degree where people might get burnt out, right, where it's like, oh God, it's sensory overload. But that's what Mercury is when it's out of bounds. It's exactly what it is, sensory of information overload. It's like, okay, I don't want to hear anymore, right? It's enough. I don't want to think anymore. I just kind of want to go somewhere else. I just kind of want to escape. And yeah, right, go somewhere else. That's a big deal when we're talking about a pandemic. Well, Mercury doesn't stay in Gemini. It's going to move, okay? But it does stay out of bounds. It stays out of bounds all the way until June 11th. So it's still going to be in its extreme state, but it's going to change. It's going to change by the end of May. Before I get to the end of May, let me touch in a little bit on the new moon energy, okay? 2 degrees Gemini energy. This is where the new moon happens, right? New moon, again, new moon is when we have the moon and the sun together at the same degree in the same sign. That's a new moon. A full moon is when they're at the opposite ends of each other. It's an opposition. It's a sun and a moon opposing each other. So new moon energy is all about intentions. You use this time. You use the knowledge of the time. You say to yourself, I'm going to set my intentions. I'm going to pray on this day. I'm going to meditate on this day. I'm going to write some things down that I want for my future. But more importantly, what I need for my future, what I need going forward. This is going to be, you know, all of 2019 and all of 2020, especially 2020, because things have happened. People have lost jobs. People have lost loved ones. Just everything has been turned upside down in some folks' life. Some people feel like they're in the twilight zone. 2020, oh hell no, right? Let's get out of here. Mercury at the time of the new moon. Sun is at 2. Hang in there with me. The sun and the moon at 2 degrees Gemini. Then we have Venus and Mercury at 20 degrees Gemini. We also have the north nodes in Gemini energy. Okay? North nodes at 29 degrees. So there's the mega stellium of energy, which means a buttload of planets, a buttload of things in that same sign. Typically, it takes on a very spiritual meaning when this happens, okay? So this is a new moon. This is a new moon that has so much potential for good, so much potential for growth. And this is what we're all looking at, evolutionary growth on a quantum level, right? On a global scale. And this is really part of our intentions. How does what I need and what I want for my future fit into the big picture, fit into the world, fit in on that type of a scale where I can take my skill set, Gemini, my skill set, the things that I'm good at, and how can I offer that? How can I sell that? This is Gemini energy. And so all these planets here are like, all right, we are all the pieces of the whole. How can we learn to work within our communities? How can we say, hey, I can't do this, but I see you can. Well, I see that there's something you're not so good at that I'm pretty darn good at. Trade, barter, selling to each other, staying close to home. This is supporting local businesses on a big scale. This is all about, you know, going directly to your farmer. This is all about, you know, you've got a local artist, support them, right? Don't be on that major mall platform. Like, you know, people that are local, spend the money there. Take care of people within your immediate environment, right? This sounds a lot like home. Gemini energy represents our neighbors, okay? It represents our peers. It represents people in our community. And it's not long journeys, it's short journeys. It's staying very close to home. This is where the North Node is for the next 18 months. So if it's 18 months of that, right? And the opposite of that is the long term, is the South Node, which is your Sagittarian energy. And Sagittarian is getting in the plane and flying. But the South Node being there represents we're not going to be doing that. We're not going to be doing that so much for the next 18 months. We're kind of backing away from that for the next 18 months. Okay, so we really are doing things differently. And when your mercurial energy leaves Gemini energy, it's going to be more focused on family because it goes into the sign of Cancer. Okay, I want you to think about something else. Okay, I want to. When the new moon hits, okay, there's that Neptune effect that's very strong. But there's also Mars, all right? Neptune's at 20 degrees on the day of the new moon. It's exactly squaring Venus and Mercury, exactly. So what that means is there can be very high, idealistic, beautiful ways of communication that are occurring. This is good. This is wonderful. There can also be things that are so good, that are so dreamy, that there might be some lack of reality involved, right? We might find out later, oh, it's not true. You know, it sounded good, but it didn't really stick. It didn't really have any lasting power to it because Neptune adds confusion. Neptune puts a certain sort of color, right, on things. It adds clouds. And so it makes things feel kind of hazy, almost like we can't really grasp them. And so that's why we relate it to being dreamlike, Hollywood, right? Like fantasy, right? Because it's this, it just has this really nice feeling and elusiveness to it where you're not tied down to something specifically, right? It's got this, I can go with the flow. And so it feels very dreamy, very beautiful, very appeasing and loving, right? Neptune, high expression of Neptune is divine love, right? Global acceptance, beauty, right? And so how does that work when it comes down to the everyday life, right? The get up, eat, go to work, go to the job, deal with this, deal with that, deal with these new rules, deal with these other restrictions. Like, we start to not feel so dreamy, right? We start to feel very, I don't want to say hardened, but all of a sudden the 3D realm really becomes very obvious at that point. And Neptune is the 5D. It's what you can't see, right? It's what's out there. Remember, it's sleeping. It is my dreams, okay? So when this clashes, when it angles by 90 degrees, that's a square, when it angles your Mercury, your thinking, right, your ability to think, and Mercury's going overboard, acting extreme, right, because it's out of bounds. And then Venus is there, right at the exact degree. This is a wonderful time for doing spiritual action, spiritual activities, or artistic activities. It's a really beautiful time to do some out-of-the-box creating and some otherworldly exploring. Some people will feel that it's a way of a time to just be alone, to really grab some solitude time and to hone in on maybe meditations, spiritual practices, new moon ceremony. Keep a focus on silence, moments that you have silence. There's going to be some information that's coming through, and it could likely come through in dreams. What you want to do is maybe jot some of this down and keep track of it, and understanding that you're getting information, but it's after those planets separate, you're going to find out, and you want to see what's stuck and what's actual, what can actually work, what can hold up in the 3D realm. Your Gemini energy, all right, where all this thinking, right, your 10th house stuff, that is your ambitions, that is your goals. Your 10th house is where you express your best. It's like you came into this world when you were born with this knowledge of sales, of relating, of communicating, right? Siblings in my community. This is where you express your best, right? This is, you have this drive to go higher, to communicate and to relate and to be able to incorporate thinking, but at a really high level. You want to be at the top of the mountain peak, right? The 10th house is the goat on the mountain, right? That's why when people refer to, this is like goat energy, it's because you are at the top. You are driven, the goat doesn't stop. It can literally walk up these crazy, like almost impossible inclines, right? Gemini, on a really high level, very esoteric level, is all about the people, servicing the people. It's very similar to Aquarian energy. Geminis love people. They have an insatiable desire to touch in with different people all the time. And there's this awareness that we're all one, okay? And so we don't normally get to hear like higher positive expressions of Gemini energy, but it really touches in highly with Source. It's the messenger of the gods, that's Mercury. And so when you think about that and the Gemini energy, you understand this. You came in with this knowledge. You came in with this understanding. Mars makes things a little bit interesting because Mars is known as a malefic planet, meaning it can be very harsh at times. And so when it's mixed with the Piscean energy, it gets frustrated because Mars wants to move and it wants to be the leader of the pack. But Pisces energy is like, okay, we're doing, this is downtime. We're taking solitude. We're going to be in isolation, kind of. Like that is the sign of Pisces. And so our bodies, it's also the Mars, our bodies being in isolation, and Mars is like, but I don't want to be in isolation. So Mars is frustrated here. Mars is frustrated and it can't be the leader, right? You can be the one out front, but if there's no one behind you, there's no one following you. You need people to follow you in order for you to be the one out front. And Mars wants to be the one out front, but not in isolation. In isolation, it means you're there alone. You're not in front of anybody. So again, Mars gets this more frustration. And it also moves more sluggish because it's in the Piscean swampy waters. That also adds to layers of frustration. I see it really clearly happening to me because this happens in my 11th house. This is just an example so that you can kind of like get a learning thing here. If it's in my 11th house, anytime, as soon as Mars entered that, okay, my 11th house, I've got my Pisces. So as soon as Mars entered there, all of a sudden, any technology, any devices I touch, whether it's my phone, whether it's the computer, the desktop, whether it's the, the iPad, whatever it is, it moves at a snail's pace. Everything I'm doing, I have to hit a button 8 times. If I have to hit send, I have to type something and it won't type. Like, it's on every device. I ask everybody in the house, is this happening to you? Is this happening? Nope, nobody else is having those kind of problems. But I have Piscean energy in my 11th house. 11th house is the internet, specifically devices, right? Objects, technological things that were created for the advancement of humanity. It is literally the devices. It is the internet, right? It's this Tesla energy. Mars gets frustrated, and Mars is frustrated, and we're seeing a lot of that. We're seeing where people don't want to be told that they have to abide by rules. They don't want to be locked in. They don't want to be, in any way, shape, or form told that they have to do something in a different way than they want to do it. And so we have this revolutionary type of energy occurring where it's kind of like biting back. And Mars, let's be real, is a soldier and likes weapons. And so unfortunately, we're seeing the lesser positive side of that energy coming out, right? When people are going into stores, they're being told, hey, you need a mask on. And it's like, instead of just obeying the rules or just turning around and leaving because they don't want to abide by the rules, some of these places, I'm hearing stores where they're coming back in with weapons, like they're coming back in and shooting people. And it's like, okay, wow, like, holy crap, this is information overload. This is why in the beginning of May, I suggested for folks at this time, just like, don't even go online. Like, it's just going to be insane. You're going to be reading shit and you're going to be like, I don't believe this. This is crazy. Do you believe this is going right? It's that whole like, whoa, I had no clue. And it's extreme communication. Mercury out of bounds, Mars being squared, Mars squaring the sun, Mars squaring the moon. It's a wicked combination around the new moon. And like new moon night, 22nd evening, that's when you have the moon squaring Mars. And so that's emotions involved. Emotions about communications really squaring Mars. You just want to be aware of that. And so if you've got Gemini in your 10th house, which you do, this, and you being the person who feels as though, but I am the supreme communicator. I know how to communicate, and I believe I'm like, this is really important to me. You would want to just understand all these other things that are happening and how when Neptune is squaring Venus and squaring Mercury at the same time, that means delusional communications on both ends, meaning you as the giver, you as the emitter of the information, or you as the receiver of the information. It goes both ways, right? Energy runs along both lines. So we just need to keep that in mind. Now we move on to the later part. Well, actually a few days later, we're going to have the sun squaring Mars exactly. The sun will catch up like on the 26th of May. And what it does when it squares the sun, it sends a beam of energy. So it ignites Mars even more. Mars then somehow gets a beam of energy while it's in Piscean energy. Now, this could mean that you have dreams that are much more elevated and activated at the time, right? Like, there's just more an increase in action in dreams, or it could actually give you a burst to your body, right? There might be some, where you might have been feeling run down and tired, and when the sun comes squaring, even though it's a square, the sun is still sending a beam of energy there. And then the sun is also receiving that Martian beam. Realizing that it's in Neptune, though, means it might not get the kind of energy you would normally receive. So there could be some levels of substances, right? A substance thing where you may take something and normally you may have to take only, you take a certain amount and it affects you one way, where at this time it may be stronger on you, all right? Realizing that if the sun sends energy, the sun energized in communicative Gemini, that means that communication levels, there might be harsh communications at that time. Okay, so this is like the 26th, 27th. Remember, you want to give Mars a 2-degree orb. So that would probably be like 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th to be exact. Now, your Piscean energy, where is this in your chart? Your Piscean energy is in your 7th house. So your 7th house is your significant one-on-one partnerships, marriage, relationships, people that you work with one-on-one, okay, which could be friends, you know, where you're very close, you're one-on-one, you have lots of one-on-one private conversations. This is that house. This is that placement. This could be business partnerships too. Knowing this, having a good understanding that there could be, you know, really harsh communications during that time, you know, you would definitely want to wait till like the 28th till you get the all green light, where it's a good time to talk. It's a good time to communicate. Neptune isn't throwing its delusions and illusions on your thinking and your communications. Mercury has then pulled away and it's dipping into the next sign already. All right, so that brings me to the next part, which is thinking about home and family and mom, because Mercury goes to Cancer. And in your Cancer energy, that goes to your 11th house. Your friends are your family. In your family members, you feel like they're your friends, okay? And not everybody has that. You don't realize something is the way it is, and that others don't have that until you don't have it. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I value my friends so much. They're like family. I value my family because I actually like my family. Like we're friends, right? And not everybody can say that. And so understanding what a gift that is, and Mercury being there and still being out of bounds, means like you're going to want to really touch in with friends more than usual, because it's emotions, right? It's Cancer energy. So you are going to feel this elevation all the way until June 11th, where you're going to want to really be, you'll see yourself being online even more. You'll see yourself trying to find ways where you could make short little trips to go see family and friends, right? Because some states are opening up June 1st if they aren't already open. So this becomes where, okay, I'm willing to travel to go see somebody. It's this 11th house energy, which is I want to be in groups. I want to be with my family. Like, can we go to the woods and have a party? You know, it's that whole thing. I saw some people posting that, you know, on Facebook, where, hey, why don't we just do what we used to do when we were, you know, teenagers? Go to the woods and have a party, right? If you can't go to the bar, we'll go to the woods. This feels like that, right? Where it's just like you will do whatever it takes to be with friends because they're your family, and vice versa. Then we have to go to, we have to back up a little bit and go to June 5th. There's an eclipse, June 5th eclipse. There's another video out about the eclipse, and I want you to go and watch that video, because there I have time to go in deep about all the other energies that are occurring at this eclipse. There are a lot. There's 2 eclipses in this month, all right? And you want to really be aware of all the players at this game, okay? But what I will tell you right now is the 15-degree mark in Sagittarius is the eclipse for the 5th. Now, this is all about an emotional release. You're letting something go, because this is a South Node lunar eclipse. Lunar meaning the moon, meaning emotions, all right? And if it's lunar and it's emotions, right, again, it highlights this Cancer energy. But at the same time, it's in Sag. And what is Sagittarius about? It's my beliefs. It's my opinions, right? Sagittarius is also about my freedoms. My freedom to believe, and your feelings about these things, right? And it's going to be connected about who is considered family. It's going to connect to people who are very nurturing, people who are mother-like, because it's a combination of Cancer and Sagittarius energy, and at the same time, 15 degrees Sag, that being located for you in your 4th house highlights home and family, because that's where your Sagittarian energy is, typically. Go by the degrees. Every chart could be slightly different from this based on your birth time, if you don't know, or if you need simply for me to clarify. Comment your digits below and I can figure that out for you and give you a clear answer. But Sagittarian energy, having the eclipse there, means where eclipses occur, it's a guaranteed change. Something's going to happen if it already hasn't. If you have a planet at that point, right, that's how you know how strongly it will affect you. Now, what you would want to look in your chart to see if you have something at the opposite end, because at the opposite end would be 15 degrees of Gemini. Here we go. Takes me back, right, to your 10th house. That's where your Gemini energy is. We just talked about it. This is your highest hopes, goals, and aspirations in the world. This is where you express your best. This is where you have this authoritative knowledge, because you just know you came in this way. You were born with this understanding. And this is an area where it's not so much a career, but it's a calling, right? Meaning you're doing it whether you get paid to do it or not. And so having an eclipse there, right? And an eclipse, even though it's at 15 degrees Sag, if you have something at 15 degrees Gemini opposing the eclipse, this will affect you the same way. If you are not certain, comment below. I can take care of that for you. We can figure it out. We can go through the details and help you to clearly understand what's going to be happening in your life, right? What's the next 18 months going to kind of look like for you? Next eclipse, the 21st of June, all right? This is a big eclipse, okay? This is considered a rare eclipse because it's a cardinal eclipse, but it's a double cardinal eclipse. It is at 0 degrees Cancer. 0 is the initiator, right? It's the initiating degree. This is where everything begins at 0, because then it's a progression from there. We go to 1, 2, and 3. 0 degrees Cancer. Now, the sign of Cancer is a cardinal sign. You see, 0, 0, cardinal, 0. Both of these things represent a beginning of something. Okay, this is an initiating energy. This is okay, we are starting something new. So where's 0 degrees Cancer in your chart? Your Cancer energy is in your 11th house. We just talked about that earlier. So you see what's fascinating about this and the way these planets are moving and the way the current energies are. When you look at all of them together, the frequency grid, all the players that are involved, Cancer energy, right? It's that group energy. It's friends that feel like family. It's family that feels like friends. That's the 11th house. Now remember, the 11th house is the internet. So if you haven't been communicating on the internet, more than likely you have been. But there's an extra assertion of it that will likely occur because Mercury is there. Now, later in June, Mercury will be going retrograde in Cancer, which means in your 11th house. I'll do another video for that later. There's a lot to talk about here as it is, and yeah, we're running way out of time. The last thing I want to mention for you is that when that eclipse occurs, that eclipse in Cancer energy at 0 degrees, that 0 degrees Cancer eclipse, it is a north node. It's considered a north node eclipse, and the north node, it's so weird, and I don't want to go into depth about it right here. I'll do a separate video, but it's where you're headed. Okay, so this is that 11th house again, right? This is the Cancer energy in your 11th house. This has something to do with where you're headed, and it's definitely connected to your 10th house because that's where the north node is, in your 10th house in Gemini energy. So your vocation, right? This is what you would do whether you got paid or not. It's like your mastery and your expertise the next 18 months. 18 months, it's time. It's time. Like, you've been waiting just for the right moment, right? You've been waiting, and it's like, it's coming. This is it. This is the time where you are going to shine. Stay tuned. Make sure you hit that button so that you can find out more about the next eclipse, because I'm going to drop some more videos on that. I'm going to go dive deep, and then we can just keep growing and learning together. Virgo Ascendant, Virgo Rising. I hope this has helped.